This video is going to be looking at Tiberius's religious policy using the sources Suetonius, Tiberius 36 and 63, an inscription at Gytheon, and ILS 6080. So you need to find those in the Tiberius section of your source book. So we're going to start with the Suetonius source, 36. Nice straightforward source to begin with. So he abolished foreign cults at Rome, particularly the Egyptian and the Jewish, forcing all citizens who had embraced these superstitious faiths to burn their religious vestments and other accessories. So that is pretty self-explanatory. He's basically trying to get rid of any foreign influences within Roman religion. So Jews of military age were removed to unhealthy regions on the pretext of drafting them into the army. The others of the same race or of similar beliefs were expelled from the city and threatened with slavery if they defied the order. So he's particularly acting against the Jews in Rome and the empire. Tiberius also banished all astrologers, except such as asked for his forgiveness and undertook to make no more predictions. So it's not just sort of Jews and Egyptians, he's also targeting astrologers. So you could suggest he's trying to maybe purify, in inverted commas, Roman religion, certainly bring it back to its roots. So moving on, so much evidence is extant not only of the hatred that Tiberius earned of the state of terror which he himself lived, and insults heaped upon him. He forbade anyone to consult soothsayers, so these are like people who sort of give predictions, except openly and with witnesses present, obviously to ensure that it is verified, and even attempted to suppress all oracles in the neighbour of Rome, but desisted for fear of the miraculous power shown in the sacred lots which he brought into Rome in the seal chest and the temple of fortune. They vanished and did not become visible again until all returned to the same temple. So either way, oracles and predictors are unable to do their work, do their predictions, unless they've got witnesses. Obviously trying to ensure that key messages are kept in positivity with his reign. And this isn't anything to do with religion, but it's in the source and it's quite useful to show his relationship with the Senate and the senators. So Tiberius had assigned provinces to certain ex-consuls whom he distrusted. So he's trying to get rid of kind of like consuls he doesn't like, but not daring to relax his surveillance, detained in Rome for several years until the successors had been appointed. So clearly Tiberius is extremely paranoid, which you can kind of get that picture also from his actions against the different religions which were not Roman in Rome and within the empire. Meanwhile, they relate his frequent instructions to lieutenants and agents in the provinces which they officially governed yet were unable to visit. So he's trying to control everything, and he's always clearly a very unhappy man. Anyway, so we move on to some inscriptions. This one is about emperor worship. So remember, Augustus has set up the imperial cult, which is the worship of, sort of under Augustus, his genius and his lares and his numen. So he's like his protective spirits, his protective guardianship of the state. What we're going to look at when we look at the next emperors is whether or not that same system is running. So obviously under Augustus, you weren't allowed to worship him specifically, hence why he had to focus on his genius or his lares or his numen. And what we're going to see if there's a subtle shift under Tiberius or not. So this is coming from an inscription. So remember, bits in brackets are things they've kind of added in to help it make sense. So let him, i.e. the market clerk, set up on the first base a statue of God Augustus Caesar. So remember, Augustus was deified on death, so he became a god when he died. The father, and on the second from the right of Julia Augusta, and on the third of Imperator Tiberius Caesar Augustus, the city providing statues for him. So he's actually been quite blatantly worshipped here. He's been worshipped alongside his stepfather, but his father of Augustus. This is not his genius, his numen, whatever. This is like just Tiberius. And let a table also be set out for him in the middle of the theatre, and let an incense burner be placed there. Let the councillors and magistrates make sacrifices before the performance commence, on the belief of the safety of the leaders. Let him preserve the first day in honour of God Caesar Augustus, son of a god, saviour and deliverer. The second day in honour of Imperator Tiberius Caesar Augustus and father of the fatherland. So although they're not calling him a god here, the fact that he's being worshipped in the same way as a god like Augustus, you could read between the lines and suggest he's being worshipped like a god. He's certainly not stopping them from worshipping him like a god. Now, all this section here goes on and on about how the festival is going to take place. So I don't particularly want to read it through. You can see I've not highlighted anything in particular, but we've got sacrificial animals. Victims is always animals, they're not sacrificing people. There's some games, they've got to wear certain clothes. There's like maidens there. There's a procession. So it's a big festival. It's really, really important. However, we get down to the bottom of the source of the section, and we have our key information. So if they do not conduct a procession or do not sacrifice, or after sacrificing do not constrain the common messes and collective magistrates to sacrifice in the agora, so the marketplace, they shall pay to the gods 2,000 sacred drachma. So what we have is an enforcement of this particular religious festival in favour of Augustus, his family, and importantly for us, in terms of Tiberius. So this is a shift away from like Augustus, who could not openly encourage emperor worship. If you did it, well, that's your problem. It's not, but he's not going to discourage it. While here we have Tiberius, it may not be him specifically saying it, but he's obviously quite happy about this, where now if you don't do the religious service in favour of the imperial family, you're going to get fined. So this is a big shift. And again, I don't particularly want to read this through, but we have some different priests again in terms of Augustus. Julia Augusta is his wife, and then we've got Tiberius again being kind of like openly worshipped here within this particular festival. And it's legal, there's a law here, so that's quite important. And then we have this very short little source here from ILS 6080. So the genius of Tiberius Augustus Caesar, son of Augustus. Again, we just have the evidence that his genius, so this is his protective spirit, his kind of protection of the state, being worshipped quite openly. And here it's actually in Rome. So again, under Augustus, you were not really allowed to do this within Rome. Genius, the worship of genius was allowed but not encouraged. Well, it's not openly encouraged, is probably a better way of phrasing that. But here again, we've got Tiberius quite openly being worshipped. This is more in line with Augustus's policy because it is of his genius, while obviously the previous inscription is quite blatantly showing that it is a shift in his policy. So although he is following Augustus's line, he is changing the policy ever so slightly.